Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Giggle Economy, a podcast. What I've been saying, I think the motto used to be like how the funny make their money. But now I came up with this other one by accident. Say the stories between the punch in and the punch out. And I like that a lot better. So,
Nice.
So we are joined today by a very wonderful podcast guest, Chet Mcgowan. Hello, Chet. How are you?
How's it going? I'm doing good. How are you today?
I'm having a good day. I'm feeling nice and secluded back into what I imagine might be a longer quarantine thing. That now the second quarantine of 2020. Third. I don't know how long this one's going to last. How's everything been going in Oregon over there?
It's going good. I actually just went back to work about 3 weeks ago. I work at a different pizza shop now. I have one coworker at a time, and we work on opposite ends of the restaurant. So I feel like that's as safe as you can get. We have no on-site seating whatsoever, not even outside. It's just food to go.
Oh, nice. And how long, you said, how long did you work there?
I've been there, I think, just under a month now.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Have you been, I haven't asked anyone this. I think I talked to Adam about this. He was on episode 2. Mm-hmm. What mask are you enjoying the most out of all? Because I found a really nice cloth mask at this a little upscale Dollar Tree, and I tested it. I did the candle test. You put it on, you try to blow out a candle. So I feel like it's safe. It's the most comfortable because I have big ears, and it hurts my ears to wear something for 8 hours out of the day. What's your recommendation for those people working out there at food service for masks?
Well, I always bring 2 or 3 clean ones to work because as they get warm over the course of the day, or if something splashes me, you need to change them. I get these, I just go to the grocery store. They have these Oregon-made cotton masks. They're 3 layers of cotton, but they're incredibly comfortable. They pass the candle test. They don't muffle my speech too much, and they're not very expensive. I don't have a brand I could recommend or anything, but they're great. Mine have horses on them.
Nice. I was wondering if yours. It's a very interesting way that we're all as Americans getting into the branding and the styles of our masks.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's a very funny statement. I've seen a lot of politicians now during this crazy turbulent time with that stuff, wear American flag ones or Democrat ones or Republican ones or whatever's going on. But yeah, I just been enjoying. I do appreciate you talking about the muffle thing. The muffle test is very interesting.
It's hard. Yeah, I'm kind of hearing impaired, so I need to be able to hear everybody. And I've got one coworker. The ones he wears are thick, and I can't understand a damn word he says.
I want
to give him a notepad someday. It's write it down, please.
I feel like as comedians, we're very lucky to already be. Let's play to the back of the room, but with a mask.
Yes, project.
Yeah, and I feel very lucky because I'm already a loud asshole, so it's nice to be like I feel like I'm screaming in the mask, but I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm just at the grocery store and we're talking and I was like, how's your day going? And pretty good. And then someone else will say something and they're like, what? And I'm like, am I loud or am I? I don't know. So we're here to talk to you about jobs. You said you're in food service, but we like to start off you can either do a list of jobs that you've had in your life, and then we can kind of pick and choose. We can share, you can maybe roadmap it out if you like, or the floor is yours. This is your episode. You can do up to 3 or 4 jobs if you just want to lay the seeds, and we'll go on the hike that is your employment history as we go.
I will give you a brief synopsis of my best jobs or what I thought were the most notable because I've been working a lot. My whole, I'm a twin, right? So I was born in LA and essentially recruited at the hospital to start acting when I turned 6 weeks old. I have a long work history.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the acting thing.
Oh yeah, no, they love twins for child acting because they get around labor laws that way. You can only work them 4 hours and then you just swap in the other one.
I knew you were a twin, but I had no idea that you had just was it commercial acting right away?
Yeah. No, I think we did a couple of diaper things. I only remember one job when I was 4 years old. I worked on a TV show called Tour of Duty. I think the Vietnam War. Me and my sister played little Vietnamese orphans, but it was a group shot. It was the only time we were on camera together.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, tell us about that. I want to know, so do you have photos? Do you have videos? How did your parents get you decide to put you into that?
My dad was a grip. He worked at Warner Brothers when we were born. So he was already in the industry. But I guess I don't know how they do it. Supposedly they would just look through like birth records, and if they saw twins, they would contact the parents. Like I don't think they do that anymore. I think parents just push their kids into it, but it wasn't necessarily their idea. Somebody approached them.
Okay, and because your dad's in the industry, it wasn't weird for him to be like, "Hi, I just heard you had twins." Because any other time, that's like the beginning of like a primetime 2020 investigation story.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling he was probably telling people too, like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have twins," because my mom is 4'11", and I guess during her pregnancy she got very big very quick.
Oh man.
And they thought it was an issue, and they're like, "Oh, there's two of them."
Yeah.
So he all of a sudden had to get money to fund, 2 cribs, 2 sets of everything, and I'm sure he was probably like, let's make some money back.
That is definitely a surprising sonogram. Like, oh, there are 2 kids in here. Let's get to work. My mom was also 4'11". My mom was. We always made fun of my mom. She always was telling me how much I was the firstborn, how much my pregnancy hurt her tiny framed body. She's
what are you even supposed to say to that?
I don't know. I've had a lot of open conversations. The more I am a comedian in life, and I talk about my life, my parents feel more comfortable telling me details that I did not want to know until forced upon me. So I learned that my mom was like, "Yeah, your head hurt a lot. Your brother and sister, like I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and they're like, your brother and sister, easy. Your brother just fell out of me." I think because of the gigantic Holland Tunnel-esque damage that you did to my body when you came out, David. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that." It's crazy. So you were a twin, and then how many photos did you have with them? Do you know what, if they put that money to, like, what? How did that money? Because technically,
that money got spent immediately. There was no money waiting. Also, we quit when we were just under 5 years old, which is actually like the story part of it.
Yeah.
Me and my sister, one day we just decided we were done. I don't remember discussing it with her, but we went to an audition, I think for probably fast food or something, because they kept asking us to be like, "How excited are you about food?" We just gave them nothing. We were like, "We're so excited. I really like French fries." Like, "What are you going to do after this?" Like, "Go home, go to sleep." Like, "What do you like to do? Like, have you ever been to Disneyland?" "Oh yeah, it's great. We go all the time." Like, just, we gave them nothing, no enthusiasm. And it was a silent car ride home. And then I didn't act again until I was in high school.
Dude, I can't think of something like, I wouldn't say it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, is it apathy? You were a pair of apathetic twins? Or like you just have no, or maybe I'm thinking the word, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like nihilistic. Maybe you're nihilistic twins.
I just it didn't make much sense to me. It also felt so regular, like going to these things. Yeah. Not that we would go all the time, but it didn't feel strange or anything. I knew I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be at home where my books were and stuff.
I mean, so you worked from baby to 5. That's a long time. How many jobs and gigs did you eventually book? And like I said, all that money basically went to your raising. And
I have no numbers on that. Like, I know there were some ads, which I've never been able to track down. I know there was that TV show. There were pictures of more of them when I was a kid, but after my dad passed away, I think we lost a lot of the pictures. So.
Oh, bummer. I'm sorry about that.
I'll always have the memories, the stupid memories.
That's so crazy that you could remember stuff from that young. Cause I think I started remembering like I just worked with my parents first, or we were talking about, I think a lot of the guys that we're talking about in the earlier episodes were talking about their first job was paperboy, but you're right away.
Yes. I think 6 weeks old was the legal age where we were allowed. Like, they can't cast you if you're newborn. Yeah. But 6 weeks old.
Yeah. Is the fontanelle closed off by that point? Like,
I don't think it is. I think isn't there a soft spot till a kid's like 2?
I don't know. This is how much not a good baby person I am. I have no idea.
I stay away from them.
When the hard-boiled egg like cracks over. I don't know about that stuff. But they were just like, that's capitalism for you in America. They're like, get these babies in diapers. Let's get these babies in a movie.
Pretty much, yeah. I know that we were more in demand because we were ambiguously ethnic.
Yeah.
So babies kind of all look the same. So that was interesting to learn.
And then
you look like nothing.
That's like, oh man. like, so then you quit that, and then you said you quit that at 5, and then you wanted to pursue, like you said, you wanted to read, and then you acted later. What would you say your next big thing that you kind of like were interested? Because like school basically is just training us what kind of things we want to work in. That's basically all school is, like what kind of career job do we want to find, or what kind of knowledge have we gained enough to work and find some employment that'll pay us money to do.
Well, see, that's where it gets a little weird, because I went to a performing arts high school. So they did, like, the job that I got from that. They shot a movie at my school over the summer that I got to be background in, which was fine. But my real job during high school was I was a pharmacy technician at the Long's Drugs down the street. Yeah. I started doing that when I was 16 years old. I had my tech license, but I could only work at that pharmacy due to California board laws. And the pharmacy, like I said, very close to my high school, I was filling a lot of my teachers' prescriptions.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like they would come in and pick the pills up from me.
Your whole life has just been multiplying things. Your whole life so far up to this point, you're like just being part of a pair, and then just all of a sudden, is that some of the books that you got into? So you're like quit at 5. You're like, I just want to learn. How did you get into wanting to be a pharmacy tech? You're like, I love chemistry and.
No, I just needed a job, and I just went to go apply at the pharmacy because it was really close. Like, it was a Long's drugstore. I don't think they exist anymore, but it's like a Walgreens or CVS.
Yeah.
One of those. So I just applied thinking I was going to be like stocking shelves or something. And they said, actually, we need people in the pharmacy really bad, and we'll pay for you to go to take the training for it.
And what does that entail?
I went on a work permit like when I was 16 and a half in my junior year. I would only go to school half the day, and then I had 40 hours a week at the pharmacy, and the courses I took were, I think, like every other weekend I went for 6 weeks or something like that. And I had to do like a lot of reading and stuff.
What was the most difficult part, or most fun? I'm a yin yang kind of guy, so back and forth. What did you enjoy, and what did you hate about the process of learning how to be a pharmacy tech?
I mean, I've always been interested in healthcare and things. I really liked that. I hated dealing with the sales reps and stuff. Like, it kind of, the idea of corporate healthcare and just how fucked America is versus other countries with prescription advertising and stuff. I burned out on it really quickly. Like, I was going to go to pharmacy school, and then I just had this kind of crisis of conscience where I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not going to go to school for like 7 years to learn how to be a drug dealer. If I want to do that, I can just sell drugs. So then when I moved to San Francisco a couple of years later, I got a job at a weed dispensary, and it was great. And I didn't have to go to school or anything. And I never got robbed or anything like that. It was a pretty safe dispensary in a small part of the city.
What was the most daunting prescription to fill? Like, what did you like? Oh man, here comes Mr. Jenkins with his so-and-so.
We had a lot of people who would forge things. Like there was a lady who stole a pad from her doctor, and she would fill it out, and we were like, this is not his prescription. This is not his signature. This isn't even his handwriting. We had a few clients that, they couldn't afford things, and that was always terribly, terribly sad, horrifically sad. But personally, for me, the hardest thing was filling my teacher's prescriptions, because I wanted to tell everybody, you're bound by law to not. It's HIPAA. There's a lot of very important rules. And then none of them ever transferred to a different pharmacy. There were multiple ones in my town. It was a pretty big town, about 100,000 people. I'm like, I get that it's convenient, but I work here now. Can't you just go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Like, this is cruel to me.
You just look at their prescription like, I'm very sorry for what you're going through. I know we can't talk about it any more than this, but I'm very sorry for or whatever it is.
I would start judging them at school during the day, some of them. Like, there was one lady who was, she was a drama teacher, and I'm not going to get more specific than that. But she was her personality was kind of all over the place. And once I started filling her prescription, I'm like, I think you're just crushing these up and snorting them between classes. That explains so much about you. Like, it made me kind of look harshly at everybody, which I don't think is fair. I didn't write that prescription. I don't know what their story is, but I should not have been in the position where I started thinking all of my teachers were drug addicts. You've
had a lot of responsibility thrust on you at a young age.
Yes. I don't like it.
It seems like I'm starting to get that. I'm starting to get that vibe. So like you got fame thrust upon you. You got
not fame. No, just work.
Well, I mean, we don't know where the baby industry, baby modeling or baby movie industry could have taken you. You know, you had credits before anyone else had credits. You know, we're all in the stand-up game trying to get in front of the camera, and then you're just crushing it. You know, you should use if you ever want to, like, well, do you have any TV credits? Yes, I actually do, as a toddler.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I've thought about making like a little kind of sizzle reel for myself of just everything I did before I started doing stand-up.
Yeah.
It just seems so ridiculous.
And then you've had this responsibility. I mean, because like, as you know, as comedians that do comedy, there can be a little bit of, you know, there's never, it's not this, I guess the best way to say it is like sad clown premises where it's like, hey, you're around a lot of chemicals that sometimes people that do our work or get very lonely and stuff. And you handled it well. You didn't do anything crazy. And that's awesome. That's just so responsible. I don't know. I don't think I would, I've never been like, I hate taking ibuprofen or acetaminophen. I'm like, can I just have a PBR? That's like my, that's the way I relax after like my back hurts. I'll have a PBR and a shot, and then that'll be great. But so what is it about responsibility? Like, what did your dad worked as a grip, and then what did your mom do as someone that was 4'11"?
My mom has probably the craziest work history I know of next to me. She's done all sorts of things. I know very little about before I was born, but I remember when my parents split up when we were about 5.5 or 6, we moved to Hawaii. She was a bank teller. Then she became a house painter and then a construction worker. And then we moved back to California and she became a secretary in a stockbroker's office. And all that was within the span of about 4 years.
Isn't that amazing when you really look at, like my parents worked so many different roles. Like my dad used to kill cattle, like, you know, like no controlled men, like that with little
bolt gun?
With the bolt gun. And my mom used to work. She used to connect glass light bulbs to the filaments and make light bulbs.
Wow.
She also worked at the cable company. My dad worked construction, and all before the time I was born, or around the time I was born, because they're like, kids got to eat, you know, kids. And my dad always said a long time ago, he's like, and you eat a lot, so I got to be out. I'm like, all right, fine. All right. Yeah. I hurt my mom's vagina and I eat too much food.
Yeah.
I'm going to be,
for me?
I don't know when comedy is going to hit me in my life, but it definitely is. I'm going to need to be talking about something in my life. But so you've had a lot, and then did your sister, as a twin, I imagine, you had this parallel life with each other. And then all of a sudden you like film, and then you went pharmacy tech. Where did she go with things? So like, how did your lives vary on what was her first job? Because it's so interesting to me, because it's almost like the director's cut of your life is her life, or an alternate take or something. I don't know how to phrase that, but that's so interesting to me.
I mean, it's really interesting with identical twins, like how some of them I think are drawn to each other and to be as similar as possible. And some are absolutely like, I want to be the complete opposite. She started working at an ice cream store. She started working at Baskin Robbins right when I started working at the pharmacy. She worked there for, I think, 3 years, and her boss ended up sending her to like Santa Barbara and would put her up in a hotel room for like a month every summer so she could go to this other shop and train people, which is like, again, that's like a 17-year-old. That's a lot of responsibility. That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
You're showing yourself that both sides of your lineage are like just thrust with so much responsibility. Like, how can you? I don't understand. Maybe I've never had. I've worked in food service, but I never had that job where it's like, you're so good at serving ice cream. I want the other people to learn from you to serve ice cream. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I just thought that was like the person who worked there the longest would be the boss, but I don't know. It was a shop staffed by mostly teenagers, and I think because she didn't try to smoke weed in the walk-in, or because she didn't like bring her boyfriend to the shop after they closed to make out or anything like that, probably she was just the most responsible by default.
Yeah. But that's all right. Like, so you quit that and you worked at the dispensary. Would you say, and you worked there after what age were you at the dispensary?
I was 21. There was a few
Okay.
years in between, but I
Okay.
had always had in my head the idea like I'm not gonna pay money to go to school to learn how to be a drug dealer.
Why would you? Why,
Yeah.
like it just seems I was looking at the news and I was talking with some other people now that like this last election, you see all the marijuana laws that passed in the United States and you're like, wow. I mean, I know the joke's been made, but seems like drugs is winning the war on drugs. It just seems like you in Oregon, they've legalized like psilocybin.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they decriminalized everything. Like heroin is decriminalized. Everything else. Yeah. But like mushrooms are, or is it
there's going
mushrooms?
to be mushroom regulated therapy in offices. It's not going to be something people can do at home. And it has to be facilitated by a person who's been through training, like who sits with you and stuff. So it's not like you're just going to eat some shit out of a plastic bag and fucking trip balls. You know, it's there's a order to this and there's a specific purpose, and it's mainly for people with PTSD. Like I'm very supportive of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you said between LA, Hawaii, and then where did the dispensary job? Was that in LA as well?
San Francisco.
Okay.
So I moved up there just before I turned 21. Funny story, a job brought me there. I was working at a Borders in Thousand Oaks, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. Right around the time I was getting into stand-up comedy, I was going down to see shows at Largo in LA, the old Largo before it was the Coronet. And Greg Barrett, who wrote that book, He's Just Not That Into You, he had a monthly show I would go to pretty regularly. It was called Bring the Rock. And he was like, it's so funny that you come all the way out here, like just to see this dumb show that happens once a month. I was like, I love this. And when his book came out, it was huge. It was like Oprah's book club and stuff. I went to the show that month and I was like, this is crazy. Do you want to come to my store to do a book signing? Because I can't believe like how much hype you're getting. And yet this show is like 150 people. Like, do you want to come read in front of a lot of people? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And we didn't think anything about it. We set it up. The store was packed. Like they were turning people away. This is a space that holds probably, I don't know, there was like 600 people or something like that. So the Borders upper management basically said, we'll transfer you to any store that you want to go to in the country. And I said, San Francisco.
Nice.
And I got there, I got health insurance. I got fired 6 days later. And then I got the job at the dispensary.
Whoa. Yeah. What did you do in those 6 days to get fired from Borders?
I think just getting health insurance, like, because I worked full time and I qualified for it because they let me and like 6 other people go.
Yeah. So it was nothing of your own fault. I was going to ask because only one of our episodes so far, Randy Mendez worked so many jobs, never been fired. You have been fired before.
That I got fired from. I think that's the only job I've been actually fired from. Okay. I feel like there was a restaurant job where maybe they just didn't put me on the schedule that much. Yeah. So I just kind of took the initiative. I'm like, if you guys don't want me around, I'll go find something else to do. But yeah, that's really the only time I've been like officially fired.
That's good. That's good. That's amazing. I'm sorry it happened to you. I'm sorry you got health insurance. If any place seemed caring, it would be San Francisco, I would think, to give you health insurance. But
Borders is a shitty company, and they were out of business less than 2 years later, so I didn't feel that bad.
And we just barely touched on it, but you're kind of a observer of the alternative comedy scene in LA. For like you have like a Ken Burnsian knowledge of pretty much the whole alternative scene from what times to what time, and then tell a little bit more about it, because I know that's not all of your life before you moved to San Francisco, and then you probably saw some more alternative comedy in San Francisco as well.
It's kind of it's kind of been like my life. Let me think. When I started going to Largo, I was probably 18 or 19. I was definitely too young to drink, but they did serve me one beer one night, and it was amazing. I think, okay, so when I was 16, I went to see a show at the Roxy that was, I thought, just music, but they had David Koechner and I can't remember his name, but it was like the Naked Trucker and T-Bone.
Oh, yeah,
was the opening act for this band. So I liked that, and I was asking people, like, who are these people? And they said they're stand-up comics. I'm like, where can I go see more of this? And then the next time I saw that band, they had Girls Guitar Club open for them, which was Karen Kilgariff and Marilyn Reiska.
Wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, those two things, I think I was 16 or 17.
Did you have any inclination? Like for me, before I ever did stand up, I had done some improv in college, but then before I ever did stand up, I worked at a comedy club as a bartender because I wanted to be near it. I wanted to be comedy adjacent, but I was scared to do it because I remember like I met Mike Birbiglia, I think right around the time the movie was coming out, his Sleepwalk with Me. I think at the time.
Yeah.
I remember, I was in Chicago and Doug Benson wanting to know like what suburb was the one to make fun of, and I met Jim Jeffries, and I remember him and the staff, and we were just hanging out. And I remember one time, I can't remember. I think this is one night we all hung out afterward. We closed the bar. We all got really drunk. And he had a bucket of beers, and then the beers disappeared, and then he used that as a urinal.
Oh God!
at some point.
Oh jeez.
Well, I was just astounded by like, wow, I can't believe these people. I think I met Christian Shaw and Paul F. Tompkins, and that was I don't think Christian Shaw, maybe the first season of Flight of the Conchords was out.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing time. I was just like a crappy bartender. I shouldn't have been hired, but bartenders in comedy clubs, they're like, you'd rather be here than at a real restaurant? Right. Absolutely. Let's you work, you love it. Okay, let's do it. I think it was amazing.
You're not exactly making individual craft cocktails.
No. What was your, did you ever want to find a job like that closely, since you were getting really into these like alternative comedy shows? Like you were hanging out with Greg Barron at Borders, but did you ever like, how do I get closer to this and eventually do it?
I'll be honest, when I started getting into comedy, I had no idea like anything about it. I kind of just figured these were all actors who got sent by their agents to go do these gigs. Like I couldn't figure out how to get into it because what I was seeing, like I knew these people, most of them had TV credits or movie credits, or they were writers on shows and things. So I just figured they had been established in showbiz for a long time.
It does seem seemingly impossible. Like speaking of jobs, there's a lot of mystique about the job of a stand-up comic, and how does it all happen? It just seems like magic, but then also you start doing it, you're like, oh, it's just there's a lot of legwork and a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails and a lot of things that you see behind the scenes that aren't just the art of telling jokes. It is very important, but there's a thing as auditions to get seen. Think about all our favorite comedians that didn't get seen because they weren't on a TV show or they weren't a host of something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so you were working at Borders. You met Greg Bernhardt. You went to San Francisco. You worked at the dispensary.
Yes.
Did you meet more alternative comics?
I started doing comedy up there.
Yeah, yes. I was going to wonder.
Yeah, no, I was still I was in contact with basically most of the people I liked from Los Angeles. Okay. Because that's how small the scene was. Like you could just walk up to these people and be like, hey, I think you're really funny. When's your next show? And they'd tell you, because they didn't all have websites back then. I mean, this was like 2003, 2004 or so. I was on a website called A Special Thing, which was a message board for comedy nerds that I think has been offline for probably close to 10 years now. So I should probably stop bringing it up.
I think I saw Brian Posehn and this is very definitely going to date me, but it was very cool at the time. MySpace comedy was a huge thing at some point.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. There was just like MySpace, like they were like, let's do a secret shows and bring people here, and they were free, and it was amazing.
They put on a secret Mighty Boosh show in LA that I got to go to. I left work at lunch that day. I stood in line for, 9 hours, and I was number 29 in line, and they let 30 people in. Nice. And there was a couple hundred. I mean, there was a lot of people lined up. It was crazy.
I like that we're this is a podcast about jobs, but I do like the idea of being a fan of comedy is kind of a full-time job when you think about it.
I guess that's my passion. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we're both, I'm a huge fan of comedy, but it kind of becomes like this unpaid internship that whether you know it or not, you get into them, you like have to research, like you're doing all these things that would people would pay you for it. Like you're doing research and you're going to their show and you're helping with their marketing. Like, oh, you and my friends you're trying to get other people to go to these comedy shows. So you're kind of learning all these skills that like will help you later on in life in comedy or working somewhere else. You're like, man, this is crazy. But that's just I've never even thought about fandom being kind of a job in itself.
I learned so much about it from going to all those shows. I remember in San Francisco, Chris Hardwick and Mike Furman, they used to tour together as Hard and Firm. It was like musical, geeky comedy.
Yeah.
The first time they did the Punchline, they were there for a week and we were buds. So they said, you want to come to these shows, you can just come. And I got to watch over the course of the week. I think Tuesday night there was 17 people. And by late show Saturday, it was completely sold out, which is typical, like for Tuesday night comedy in the city or whatever. But I also got to watch the jokes change a little set to set, like when they would figure out what would work and what wouldn't. It was almost like a really condensed sort of thing, getting to see it change so rapidly.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to the job thing. It's kind of like auditing a class in college.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, wow, I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm actually sitting down and learning from these people. I'm like, wow, it does change. Like I remember when I would see comics do a full weekend at that comedy club I was a bartender at, and you're like, oh, that's not a finished joke yet, but it's it's the thread. And I loved seeing that and loved like demystifying the art of comedy because you kind of have to deconstruct it before you know what's happening. Yeah.
And it was around that was right when I started doing comedy for the first time. When I did that in San Francisco, I was only going to maybe 1 or 2 open mics a week. There was one on Thursdays at the Brainwash, and then there was another one at this place called Canvas, and I didn't know of any others. So it wasn't like I had the chance to get up at mics and work jokes out as fast as I could see people who had years of experience doing it. Like whenever somebody I liked would come to Punchline, I would try to see as many of their shows as I could. I was so fascinated in that process, how things changed.
And did you, as someone that worked at a dispensary, did you find like that helped out? You're like, hey, I work at a dispensary. Like, how would you How would you talk at comedy? Because I always found the hardest thing about comedy, besides being in the audience, is like mingling with the other people in the audience, or just kind of like, oh, if it's one of those shows that's like a rock show and you have to stand up, you kind of like, I'm an uncomfortable person. How do you did you talk about each other's jobs? And once people found out that you worked at a dispensary, did you like promote that dispensary? And did you bring a lot of business to that dispensary?
Not so much, but I did try to get comics to come by. Doug Benson was really nice. When he was in town, he and Tony Kameen signed a bunch of copies of their book, The Marijuana Logs, for us.
Yeah.
So we could have them for sale at the dispensary.
That's right. And then like by that point in California and San Francisco, was it for recreational back then?
No, it was medical.
Okay.
They paid for my medical card. Like I have, migraines and anxiety. So I don't know why I did that. I have genuine crippling anxiety, but the weed doesn't help with that. Like I just told the doctor it did.
No, it was a quote unquote anxiety, but also because it's just generalized anxiety. I think that's what.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was medical at that time, but it was so easy to get a medical card. It was so easy. I mean, this is like 15 years ago, I guess, that all this happened. So it's very different from now. Like dispensaries now are crazy.
I was going to say, tell us a little bit about like the working there, like, because what neighborhood were you in San Francisco? What was surrounding the dispensary?
I lived in the Tenderloin, and the dispensary was like outer Bernal Heights. It was 29th and Mission. Okay. So it wasn't like really in the shit. It was like an old laundromat space, I think, that they had converted to be the dispensary or something like that.
I mean, was it just because I always picture like did the surrounding businesses enjoy having the dispensary there? I mean, in San Francisco, I feel like pretty laid back for the time. It wasn't like a bank and then like a funeral home right in between.
They recruited me from my job at the coffee shop across the street. I worked directly facing them, and they were great neighbors. Like they would come out and sweep every morning and stuff like that. But the owner of the place actually came into the coffee shop and was like, "Hi, I noticed you can wake up on time. Would you like to come work for me? I will pay for your medical card." They had a really hard time getting morning people.
I see that you are selling another legal drug, caffeine.
Yes.
Would you like to help sell our legal drug? And that's so funny just to be like, it was great. What was the name of the coffee place? Do you remember?
The coffee place was Muddy Waters.
Oh, all
4 of them.
I find coffee shops are always like the independent coffee shops are always named really well. And Muddy
Yeah.
Waters is an amazingly named coffee shop.
Yeah.
Was
I wonder if it's still there. I'm not sure, to be honest. But
Was it like blues themed? Was it just like, did they play a lot of like, why was it just called Muddy Water? Because that's also like, oh, coffee. It's kind of like muddy water, that kind of thing.
I think it was like that. I think it was more like wordplay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long did you work there before you got recruited? That was your first time you've been recruited a lot in your life. You're like, do this.
That's not the first time one job has recruited me for another one. There was a different coffee shop in high school just after the pharmacy job where I worked there. And then the guy just said, hey, you should go talk to my friend across the street. Suddenly I was working at a coffee shop and a hot dog stand.
What was
I didn't
the name?
ask for that job.
What were the names of the hot dog stand and the coffee shop over there?
It was Java Island was the coffee. I do not remember the name of the hot dog stand.
See, it's got to have, it was probably named like Joe's or something like that.
Something like that. You know, I didn't care. I didn't ask for that job. All of a sudden I just had it. And I had to quit them both at the same time. So like, I felt weird quitting just one. I just left them both.
So you're working the dispenser. How long did you end up working there all together?
Oh, that was probably around a year. It was my last year in the city. So yeah, I wasn't there too long. I moved to LA, I think when I was 22 or 23.
Okay.
The dates are a little fuzzy. So yeah, I worked at that coffee shop in the dispensary until I left San Francisco.
Nice.
Yeah.
And why did you move to LA? Just wanted to be closer to comedy?
I got into a relationship and yeah, the guy wanted me to move down there. It was definitely my worst relationship and I stayed in it for way too long because it was so easy to get to comedy shows where I lived. Great apartment. It was like West Hollywood. Everything was within walking distance, but it was a fucking miserable relationship. I should never have gone out with them.
I think we're all guilty of being in a relationship because the lease is really good. You know, you're like, this is a good place to, I like my coffee shop. I like my commute to work is nice. This is nice. So I don't put that down in any way. So you moved to LA.
Yes.
Very expensive to live at LA.
Incredible.
What's your next move job wise?
The boyfriend had a friend that worked, like he had set up a credit card processing company.
Okay.
So he's like, you're, kind of computer oriented. Why don't you go work there and answer phones? So I had that job the whole time I lived in LA. I quit it 5 times and got hired back 5 times, every time with a pay raise.
Please expand upon that.
So the job sucked. I was bored answering phones. So I started looking at the software stuff and being like, there's got to be a way just to fix this shit. So I worked there on the phones and I would like do little bits of coding stuff. And then I hated it, quit, went to go work at a coffee shop. They called me back after 2 weeks and offered me more money. So I took it and I ended up in tech support, like kind of being a little more hands-on with things. I hated it. I quit. They called me back. There was a new manager that they got that I really, really hated. Just did not like this guy. He was dumb as hell. He was mean. He was constantly trying to like bang the secretary and make her uncomfortable. So we got in a big fight. And I wrote an essay about how much I hated him for this movie called Visioneers. They had a contest, like the Zach Galifianakis movie, right before it came out. Oh, you've never seen it?
I'll have to look it up.
Okay. It's Zach is like kind of a middle manager in a sort of futuristic dystopia where everybody's a middle manager in this corporate world. Like you can't go up or down. You're level 3 forever. And it absolutely felt like my job in the office. I'm like, I can't, every time I leave, I just come back and like nothing really seems to change. So I wrote this essay for their contest. Like, what's your worst job? I'm like, this is it. This is my worst job. And it's a hell. And I don't feel like I can get out of it. And I won the contest. They flew me to Vegas. I got to see the movie. So I quit the job right before that. And then when I got back, they asked if I wanted to come back again with another raise. So I took it. And then about a year after that, I want to say maybe 2 years, right after I broke up with the boyfriend, where I was just kind of like half living under my desk in the office and crashing on friends' couches the rest of the time, and half looking for a way to get out. Somebody just gave me a piece of paper that said like, this is what everybody's making. And I found out I was being massively, massively underpaid. compared to my coworkers, which is
Wow.
why they were able to give me raises every time I came back. I had no idea what I should have been making. So that was the final straw. I left and I came to Portland.
There is that ambiguity.
Yeah.
To, you know, like I think with some jobs I've been in, you have to sign all these things that like you will not discuss with your coworkers what you make.
Right. Right.
And I think that's definitely a dampening of spirits and a dampening of mood. And I think if there's more transparency with that, we could be like, oh yeah, I'm worth more, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And no wonder you're quitting. What was out of those 5 times, by the way, 5 times quitting anything is hilarious. You quit, like, what was the most creative way you quit? Like, I mean, I'm going to go to a premiere. I want a trip to Vegas because this job's like sucks so much. Like, did you say that to them or what did you,
yes.
how did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I said, you guys know how I keep quitting? I'm doing it again. But this time I got a trip. Like I have something coming up and I want it because I hate this place. They still hired me back. I didn't ask to get any of those calls, but I also didn't have to take them. I don't know why I kept going back. I guess I'm lazy. I'm just like, you're giving me more money. Maybe you feel bad. It's like an abusive relationship.
It's weird, right? I was thinking about that too. It's like you kind of like, well, it is. They're changing now. They're not the same. They've offered me more money, so maybe it'll be different this time.
Yeah, no, I was getting like more money. I got moved to a different department, and then I kind of got like a better, not really an office, but a cube in that area. And I liked one of my coworkers a lot. He was really cool. So it was incremental changes.
How do you feel about cube life? We haven't talked with anyone about cube life. Are you one of those people that bring little trinkets from home and kind of have like things that make you feel comfortable? And tell me, Bill, like what that meant to you, cube life, and how did you deal with this job that you quit 5 times? What did you bring? What makes your bubble, Chet, secure when it walked into your cube, your bubble inside your cube?
It was a lot of ridiculous, mostly comedy related crap. I had a comedy death rate calendar one year. I had a Tim and Eric calendar that like I think I sent away to Adult Swim for one year. I had like ticket stubs from shows and things up all over the place, like tons and tons of toys. That was the other thing. My boss, the guy who started the company, he mostly did it to fund his passion, which was like importing toys and a lot of those little blind box figures, dunnies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like they're a step up from Funko Pops, but they're really expensive and they don't do anything. And I didn't get it, but he always had like tons of toys. Like there was a room in the office that was just his toys, like the things he'd send out. And every once in a while he'd be like, hey, do you want this? So I had probably 30 or 40 of those just lined up.
There is that weird thing where the bleaker the job, the more dreary the job, the more toys you see in the office.
Yes.
Like I remember seeing this picture, or maybe not this picture, this video of, I think maybe Conan O'Brien going into Industrial Light and Magic. And this person was like a data processor. So they didn't even do all the fun stuff in Industrial Light and Magic. But this person had every wrestling figurine for like, I would think it was like 30 years. So it was like maybe 300 wrestling and the ring and posters. And you're like, what does this guy do? He's like, oh, he's accounting. And you're like, that sucks.
Yes.
Like this guy brings his toys so he can think about his childhood and not think about the numbers that he's crunching at while Star Wars battles are being drawn and animated behind him. Yes. So that's so I'm a person too where, are you, when someone walks into your cube and they see your toys and they pick something up, are you mad right away? Or are you like, I don't care, that's fine, touch what you want?
I would try to orient the stuff I cared most about the farthest away from the entry.
Yeah, because I would never go into someone's, it's kind of like, okay, don't want to mess, and that's like going into someone's house and then just like going through their medicine cabinet kind of feels like their trinkets on their desk, like don't touch it. I don't know if I'm picking up what I perceive as a nice picture and all of a sudden like, oh, that's their dead mother. I don't want to do that. And that's been in the same position since their mother passed away. But so that's crazy that and then you decided to quit that job. What was the final time quitting that job? What was the final like goodbye? Do you remember that day?
I don't remember the last day so much, but I do remember just before that when I said I'm leaving, they kind of laughed and I said, no, I'm serious. I have a plane ticket and you can't tell my ex because I'm fucking getting out of here. And they kind of freaked out.
Whoa.
They were like, where are you going? I'm like, Portland, but it doesn't matter. Like, I won't be here anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
So so he was kind of like he was your way in, and now you're like, I'm leaving this boyfriend behind.
Yeah.
I'm leaving this job behind.
Yeah.
I'm going to Oregon.
Yeah.
See you later. And they laughed at you. I always think that's so weird.
Yeah.
What a weird response.
What, like, oh, you're going to come back. I'm like, who the hell would come back to LA? It's expensive here. Like, no.
Did they ever call you back offering you more money?
They did call me back and got me to do a work from home thing about a year after I moved here.
They keep getting you back. You worked. I was like, oh man, They just knew how to get you. They're like, how about this? Was that after you knew the number? Wow.
Yeah. No, I was doing it for, I think it was 6 months. I did a work from home thing here in this apartment. It was a little hard for me to find new work when I moved here. I just knew I didn't want to do any of the stuff I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So I started cooking, and kind of the first year I was really just building my skills. So I did need like a little bit more cash. Like I was taking really just not really well paying jobs, just trying to learn how to do things.
I will say it is how when I moved to Portland, I didn't know how to get a job in Portland. I'm like, how do people work here? Like how do jobs happen here? Because I mean, I was downtown and everyone was just walking around and it wasn't lunchtime. And I'm like, it's 2:30.
Yeah.
Why aren't people working? And they're like, it's Portland. That was always the excuse. Like, there's a strip club, there's a bar. Let's go have a really strong IPA. It's 3:00 on a Tuesday. Yeah, that's Portland. Let's go figure it out.
That was kind of how I started getting good jobs in this town. Was I started just going to more bars and talking to people, and that was how I got my first real restaurant job.
And that's because you actually got me one of my jobs too. Let's not forget that. Like I was needing some extra money. I was getting ready to move to Austin, Texas, and I was like needing to save some money. And you got me a job at a wonderful place, Ground Control.
Yeah.
And I was a door guy, and I loved being a door guy. It was so much fun. I don't know if I've ever told you thank you, but I really, it was so much fun.
Definitely have. No, they are planning on reopening when they're allowed. So I'm technically still employed there.
I'm so excited for them to open because I never got to see the second part of it. I only got to see.
Yeah,
so
wow.
I was still working. That was during the time where they were remodeling the original side. Yeah. And I didn't get to see it. So I'm so excited to go back as soon as COVID times are over. I'm so excited to see that big Ground Control.
I am so curious about what it's going to be like. One of our security guards, he moved away. So they had like a small socially distanced thing inside in July or something like that, where I think they allowed 6 of us in there at the whole time. And it ended up being a thing where I just didn't go because I'm like not as close with this guy. So I haven't been back there since March.
Okay. And
I'm curious.
And mine was, for people that are curious, I was just a part-time job working the door and stamping people and letting people in. Yep. And so it was just a casual thing, very part-time. And it was just so much fun. So what was the first restaurant job that you got in Portland? Like, and what bar were you in? And what were you doing when you got your first, like, tell us the story of that first good job that you got in Portland.
Yeah, so I was working at a crappy noodle place downtown, and they let me go. Then I worked at a worse pizza place, and they let me go like the day before Halloween. So I just went over to the bar like across the street from me. It's this little place called Tanuki, and I mentioned to the server, I'm like, oh yeah, no, you'll probably see me more because this is on my block and I'm unemployed. She's like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I used to work there, pointing to the pizza place across the street. She's like, oh, you cook? These guys are hiring like next door to us. We'll hook you up. Like, bring me your resume and I'll give it to them because the restaurant wasn't open. But they called me for an interview like 2 days later. It was an Indian restaurant called Indish. And it was fancy. I mean, it wasn't like just curries on buffet trays or anything like that. It was, all like really good produce, Southern Indian food. It was food I wasn't very experienced with, but it was nice.
I was going to say, did you have much experience cooking Indian food before?
Never made it in my life. And I would eat it sometimes when I was in high school, but like I had not eaten Indian food in years. I'd never been in an environment where I had to call anybody chef. or anything. I had to buy like chef whites, like a jacket and stuff.
Wow.
And say yes, chef. And it was weird. It was almost a little like boot camp, but I was there for a while until they closed. I think I was there like a year and a half.
Oh, nice. Well, I always find I worked with my parents at their restaurant. They used to own a Mexican restaurant.
Oh man, that's got to be crazy working for your parents.
And I didn't have to call them chef, but there's something about like making sure you call your like respecting your father, who is also your employer, who is also the head chef.
Yeah.
Keeping everything on. I remember one time I walked in, and I think I walked in with some, like you're a teenager, you walk in with a little bit of a swagger, and I was trying to figure out my Latino-ness. And I think I just watched Stand and Deliver, which was a movie about Latinos doing calculus. Mm-hmm. That's where I was with my Latin learning, and Edward James Olmos is that movie. I love Edward James Olmos, but I think I learned the word vato that from that movie. And I walked in with like a cockiness, and I had a shirt on, and I buttoned the top button.
Oh my God!
I walked in. I wanted to be cholo so bad. I wanted to be I wanted to be, because I wanted to be so much harder Latino than I am currently as a soft belly Pillsbury Doughboy Latino that I am now. But I walked in and go, "Hey, what's up, vato?" And my dad gave me the look like I had just flipped off his mother on her wedding day. Like it was like the worst. And we still talk about it today. It's like,
oh my God, that's so funny.
It's one of the most contentious points of our relationship. We've had quite a few arguments because, you argue with anyone in the food service business.
Oh yeah.
But man, did I tick off my dad that day.
I can't even imagine. That's just, even thinking about you in that outfit is hilarious.
And he's from Mexico, and he used to, but like he didn't want any cholo culture, and like I love Cheech and Chong growing up, and I just wanted to be that kind of Latino, and he just wasn't having it. He was like, no, not in my house, not in my restaurant, not in my house. So and then I remember going back to, because I didn't have experience like you, probably Indian. I didn't have experience. I cooked in Chicago. I made falafel.
Ooh.
And it was really fun.
Yeah.
But all the Latinos that worked there made fun of me because all I had done was basically either been a server or a host or a bartender.
Yeah, front of house.
Yeah, front of house. And then I worked in the back of the house making falafel. Mm-hmm. And the Latino people make fun of me for chopping vegetables so slowly. They were like, you have college fingers. That's what they said. They said, you're afraid. What are you going to chop off? Just chop. And they're like, this one guy would pick up his fingers and like just show me his ragged cut hands. And he's like, just cut your hands. It's fine. Just get a little blood. That's how you get better at it. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And I'm just like, college fingers over here is going to put us behind. Get to work. So I'm sorry to divert off that. Sorry about that.
No, that's hysterical.
But you got your chef's whites. You're working at the Indian place. You worked there for about a year and a half.
Yep.
Where did that take you?
Well, they closed. And then I worked I got a job at a pizza place on Mississippi Avenue that's still open called Lovely's 50/50. And I was there for about 5 years.
Is that a cocktail place?
No, it's wood-fired. Well, actually, I guess it's not wood-fired anymore, but it was like basically wood-fired pizza, like organic wines, all the produce is from local farms. It's like extremely Portlandy.
Yeah. And then when did stand-up come into the mix? Were you doing stand-up in Oregon for the first time, or did you?
No, I started stand-up in San Francisco, but I quit when I moved to LA.
Okay.
And then I started again here in Portland in 2016, but I never stopped going to shows or mics or talking to people that I liked.
Because
I kept that passion even when I wasn't on stage.
Because the one thing I was going to say, you kept your passion up even though you're in the food service industry, and most time you would have to work nights.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
I would
really
run to shows after getting off work. I remember when Shane Torres had this going away thing at the Bossa Nova. I came straight from Lovely's from working on the wood-fired oven, and I missed about half of it. But I came in, and then I forget if it was Phil Schallberger or somebody, but I walked up and said hi, and they're like, "You smell like a campfire. Were you just camping?" I'm like, "I just came from work. I'm filthy. I didn't have time to change."
For sure. I've had so many people tell me you smell delicious, but get away from me. Like they're like, "You're making me hungry. Get away from me." I'm like, "Oh man." So What was your favorite job that you've had? Because you've lived in Portland now. How long have
10
you lived?
years.
10 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a
Thank
big
you.
anniversary.
It's crazy.
The job market in Portland is so different and unique. You worked at Ground Control. You worked at Indian food place. You worked at a wood fire pizza place.
Yeah.
What was your? We got to wrap it up in about 10 minutes. But this has been so much fun talking to you. I feel bad. This just flew by. But
Thank you.
but what is your most unique Portland job experience? And then we'll end it with, I have one other question, but let's talk about that. What job do you love working in Portland so far? Because didn't you work also at in Bridgetown Comedy Fest?
Oh yes, I did. I was gonna say probably the final year of Bridgetown, the volunteering I did. I mean, it's volunteering, but still, that was absolutely remarkable and something I think about all the time. I got to stage manage with George Baltzer, who I think he's in Ohio now, but he was in Chicago and was originally from Eugene. We stage managed Ron Lynch's the final show of the festival. It wasn't tomorrow's show, but it's called a crapshoot, where every performer has to do something that Ron pulls out of a hat right before their set. So like the show goes in a random order. You don't know who's going up next. You don't know what they have planned. There's audience participation involved. And it was this big thing in the Bossa Nova Ballroom. And it was like the last show of the last festival. And I had been going since the beginning. I couldn't believe I got to work on that. It blew my mind.
It's amazing. And like I said, I love that festival so much. I was so lucky to be a part of that too. I think our mutual friend, Whitney Streed, put me on that festival. I think I did some coordination stuff. I did stage managing. So I was very thankful that they let me on the festival too.
Yeah.
But it was such a wonderful time. How many years? Because I have assumed you, before I even knew you, were like a mainstay of that festival. How many years did you work that festival?
I only volunteered for them the last couple, but that festival is why I moved to Portland. The first 2 times I attended, I didn't live here. I missed the first year because of work. I couldn't make my flight, so I just ended up not coming rather than miss the first night. The second year I came up here, absolutely fell in love with the city. I came up here again for the third year, and then I had moved by the time the fourth year started.
People always say that people from LA love Portland because it's kind of like summer camp for people in LA. Like it it smells so good. The air. I remember when I moved, the air was like the first thing I noticed. I'm like, this air smells delicious. I don't know how to say it.
The air's amazing. You can drink water straight from the tap.
Yeah, it tastes. I miss the taste now that I have a filter here in Austin. But and I'm like, I miss the taste. I miss the taste of water. And they're like, what's no fluoride? All right, I guess that works then. I guess that works.
It was kind of like summer camp. Also, I think because the first few years it was so small, mostly all the comedians would stay like in one hotel. So you'd be going down the hall and you'd like see people you knew from back there, but all of a sudden all of you are here. Plus, I remember one year the sponsors were like Crater Lake vodka and vitamin water. Crazy. So most people were just drinking those and eating free voodoo donuts and kind of going insane.
Yeah.
Like that festival was crazy. Getting to volunteer for it was just the absolute best. Shout out to Andy Wood, who's currently killing it on Jeopardy.
I was just going to say that founder Andy Wood's on Jeopardy, 4-day champ. I think his episode was today. So if you get a chance to go see Jeopardy, go see Andy Wood. Very nice guy. I got to meet him, and very awesome that festival. That festival happened 10 years.
It was for 10 years.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice little button by the time
I think
it
ended 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 or 4, but man, it was amazing.
The last couple questions I'm going to ask you are about regrets.
Okay.
And retirement.
All
right. Because as someone that has a lot of jobs, everyone's like, I need to worry about my retirement. I have some savings. I have a 401k. I have a little bit, nice. Not a lot, but like a little bit, like 5% of this. And do you think about that as someone that's worked a lot of jobs? Do you have any regrets about, like, they say you got to start saving when you're 25 or you're going to be broke. Do you have any thoughts about retirement as someone that has all these jobs?
Yes, I firmly believe I will never, ever be able to retire.
Me neither. I don't think so.
In my life, up until quarantine started, I had been unemployed for, I think, 2 months since I was 16, like 2 total months in all of those years. I'm 36 now. I spent from March until the middle of October, not working. And I've never had that much free time in my life. And I hated so much of it. I need this structure. I do like cooking. I like what I do now. I'll do it as long as I can. Like, hopefully with what I'm doing now, it's not as taxing physically on me as my old job, but like I will do it until my wrists wear out. I will do it until I've cut off my fingers. Like I love it.
I feel like that's a great mentality because, like I said, it's not even $1,000 in retirement. I just started putting some away, be like, oh, I need to start doing this. Is freaking me out because I think that too. I think retirement is such a scary thing that I never got taught in school, but you should probably get taught at some time. Be like, oh yeah, I might have something horribly happen to me, and I might want to think about that, or something like a pandemic might happen. So having a rainy day fund.
I've never had a savings account in my life. I've never made that much money. I mean, like I said, at the office job, they were severely underpaying me. Like I've just never been able to accumulate savings until the pandemic. I started saving my unemployment money because it's like, well, I'm not going to shows. I'm not going to bars. Like now I have a savings account. Yeah. It's weird. I don't feel good about that money, but like it's mine.
Yeah, you should be proud of it. You're not being exploited as a twin baby at this point. This is money that you would be working. You would. Yeah. So I would feel very good about it. I would say the final question that we're going to do is all about, have you ever been afraid to try out for a job that you thought you were underqualified for? And what would that job be? Have you ever been scared or intimidated about comedy aside? We're all it makes me nervous in my ways. And I know that sometimes, open mics are daunting or a big showcase is daunting, but any job that like kind of made you nervous that you're like, I could never be a fireman because I'm terrified of fire.
Sure. Like personal experiences or like hypotheticals?
Yeah, something that connects that like you've thought of, maybe like someone maybe suggested you doing it, or just something that kind of is intimidating.
Somebody told me I should get into cooking. I found that super intimidating. Yeah. Because like I knew when I moved here, I just wanted to do something different. And people are like, well, I mean, you can cook at home. Have you thought about cooking in a restaurant? I'm like, that's completely different. Like, I know it's different, but I'll give it a shot. When I got that interview for the Indian place, I felt like just the biggest case of imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm not familiar with this food. I've never been in like an actual professional kitchen that's not like kind of fast foody. They're going to see right through me and it's going to be weird. And I ended up keeping that job for so long.
Congratulations. They didn't. I imagine you're like, are they going to taste the inauthenticity of my? I'm not Indian. I don't know. Like I cooked falafel, and I was always worried about that. Someone seasoned this like a Latino, like, or whatever it was.
Well, I think they had everything like recipe wise and stuff, and they did like drill in the whole tasting thing and stuff. Yeah. And they're like, it's not that it needs to taste great to you, but it needs to taste the same, and it needs to taste good to the chef. Yeah. Like, you're not tasting this to decide, do you like it? Like, you are tasting this for consistency. They taught me so much at that job. Nice. That even though I was scared, I'm really glad I did it.
That's wonderful. And I think the last question I'm going to ask is, if you go back to your whole work history and right a wrong, go ahead and fix something in your timeline of work, what job would it be, and what would you do to fix it? Give a little context to that.
Oh, geez. I guess I want to say at the office job, I would have tried to figure out what I was worth instead of just taking the little pittance raises that they were giving me every time. Except if I say that, I wonder if I then would have stayed in LA longer in that unhappy relationship. Like, maybe because I was comfortable there, it would have messed everything else up. I don't know. Maybe I don't have work regrets.
There you go. That's good. Because it's kind of a butterfly effect. Yeah. It's kind of like, if you change one thing, how much does it change the course of your life? Because that's why the podcast really started, where it's like, there's so much stuff other than the job that we want to tell jokes and make people laugh. Yeah. There's so much stuff that comes into our personalities because of the work that we did that isn't comedy. And I really thank you. I think, like I said, I think you're such an interesting person. I could do another hour of just talking to you about we need to do another one maybe of just side gigs or your
I
hospital.
will write down every
Yeah.
job I've had. I will figure this out, but I'll
Yeah.
send it to you. And if you want to talk about that, because it's a long work history.
I think that as the podcast keeps going, this is only like, we're only less than 10 episodes in. We might have to do a follow-up with some people because
Sure.
an hour is such a short time to talk about someone's work history and accurately and in depth. But, you know, I want to make sure, and you kind of think of things. I've had people that are on the podcast like, oh, I forgot to tell this. And so absolutely write that stuff down.
Yeah.
And then next time we'll go deeper into that stuff. And
Cool.
yeah, but this is fun. Tell people where they can find you on all your social media. And then if you have anything going on or any projects or anything like that, let them know.
I don't have a lot of projects right now. I will be moving. I'll still be in Portland, but at the end of January, I'll be moving closer into Southeast. So I'll be with my comedy friend that Chase Anderson. Like we hang out. We did a lot of writing before this, and we're like kind of quarantine buddies. We're planning on doing some stuff once I'm closer to that point.
Yeah.
But right now, I occasionally tweet. I'm at Beer Engineer. And that's about it.
Yeah.
I mostly got off Facebook because of the election. I don't do the Zoom stuff because I live in a studio. My husband's been taking a bath this whole time. It's very nice, but that's what you have to do to get privacy.
Yeah.
So this place doesn't really facilitate me doing online things. The new place will.
Okay. Well, I'm excited, and please go follow Chet on Twitter. And then as soon as anything else happens, we'll hopefully we'll have you back for another episode, and we'll talk more about all the little. Maybe we'll just do one about just night gigs, or we'll do stuff.
Sure.
Just all the little gigs, like all the one-offs. Like I'm sure working at Ground Control, we didn't even talk about that at all.
No, there's so much I could talk just about that place. I got stories.
Yeah, so
days.
We'll definitely come back and talk. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I want to thank you so much for doing it.
This was so much fun.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you again really soon.
Right on.
All right, talk to you later, everybody.
Right. Thanks.
Bye.
You have a great day.
Bye.